Okay, hello everyone. This is Dr. Bratton, and we are going to go over APA and more specifically my APA template that I pass out to the class. So if you're using this template, you'll see on the first page you want to have all caps here. You're going to have running head here in upper and lower case, but always for your title, it should be all caps, and it should always be in the same font as the rest of the paper. A lot of students turn this in with this being Calibri 12 and this being Times New Roman down here. If you're doing this yourself, the way that you do it is the first thing that you do is you come into your menu and you click different first page, right, when the paper is blank. Then you come up into the header and you put in the page number, and then you start typing just to the right of the page number because it's going to be right justified. And then all of your typing would go this way. And it will just automatically start moving this way as you're typing. And so that's how you do this when you're starting from scratch. But if you use the template, then you don't have to do that. You just overtype what's there. And you overtype what's here on the title page. You would delete all the graphics, of course. Now, in this class, you do not need an abstract, but on your second page, you're still going to have all caps, but it's not going to have running head. You're still going to have the page number first, and then you start typing to the left of the page number, which is on the right justified, and everything will start moving to the left. So your actual paper will start here on page 2. You always want to have, this is called a level 1 header, which is centered and upper and lower case and bold. You always want to have at least an introduction. You're always going to have like an introduction, a conclusion. They should all be level 1 section headers, right? And so if you are doing a paper with the rubric, then what you want is an introduction, and then every part of the rubric, every section of the rubric except for, let's say, the part that says APA, you want to have a section here for that, if that's the way that the rubric runs. So always check your rubric, because that will tell you and give you ideas about what to do with section headers. Now, for this class, when you're doing a paper, and we'll take the paper that you did in week 2, you would have section headers here for every prompt that's in the paper. So if it told you to talk about, like this week, where it tells you to talk about and compare various housing situations overseas, you would have a section header for everything that's being requested for you in the assignment instructions. This way, you're sure that you're covering everything clearly, and you're not combining them where you're covering one and missing the second half of what it is that you're combining, because students do that quite a bit. They want to combine section headers thinking that they're saving time, or combine prompts, right? And you shouldn't do that. And same thing with discussions. You should not combine the prompts. You should make sure you clearly address each and every thing that's being requested. So you have your introduction, which is a level 1 section header, and level 1 only means that it's the highest level of section header, which this is level 1. When you get to level 2, and we're going to go over this, which is in-text citations. So on page 4, and I'll get back to level 2 as we get to it on another page, but that level 2 just means a subsection of a level 1. So for this class, just stay with level 1 section headers. So on page 4 of my template, you have 2 different in-text citations. And this shows you exactly how they're supposed to look. Now, in this class, I'm requesting that you don't use direct quotes, that you paraphrase like what's here in the green. And there's a reason behind that. Some students just copy and paste direct quotes throughout their entire discussions and their entire papers, and they have no understanding of what they read. They're just copying and pasting from some source, and so there's no critical thinking and there's no analysis, right? When you do paraphrasing, you have to understand what you read to put it in your own words. And so that's why I request paraphrasing. And it also makes you a stronger writer. And you're going to need that as you continue your education. There's going to become a time where direct quotes are not going to be allowed as you progress through your education. So you should start now with strong writing skills. So the first one, we'll start just with the green. We'll ignore the yellow for now. If you have a signal phrase, which is what it's called when you're leading into doing a paraphrase, this is a signal phrase. So according to Alexander Bonaparte, then you have the year, right? A lot of students will put the title of the paper. That's not the title, it's the author. If there is no author, let's say it's a newspaper site, you would put CNN 2008. You would not put the article title in quotation marks 2008 and then go on with your quote. You put the owner of the article, which is in short the website or the author of the article. Now, if you just do your paraphrase and you want to put the author or the owner at the end of the citation, then you would do it inside parentheses. Now, the difference is you have the word and here, you have the ampersand inside the parentheses. So that's a difference that students just never do. But if you do it exactly like this and compare this to your in-text citations, then your in-text citations will be correct. So that's on page 4. Now, all of this, what I want you to notice is that this entire paper is double-spaced. There's double space between your section header and a paragraph. There's double space between the prior paragraph and the section heading. Everything in the paper is evenly double spaced. There shouldn't be 2 or 3 spaces in between paragraphs. That's just padding your paper, trying to make the page count, which doesn't fool anybody. If you stay with this template, everything will be automatically set correctly. So, as I mentioned, a level 2 section header simply means it's a subsection of a level 1. A level 3 section header is a subsection of a level 2. So level 2 is fully left justified. It's not indented. Level 3 is indented. So that's how you know your levels are just subsections of a level 1. But we're just going to stay with level 1. So now we're going to move on. Then at the end of your paper, you're going to have your conclusion. And then your references will always go on their own page, right? So here on page 7 of my template, I have correctly formatted references for you to compare to yours. So what you have here is you have the reference of a library database article, which you should be getting for all your papers, is using the SPC library. And then you have an internet source, which a lot of students are going to have an internet source, and then you have the textbook. So these 3 are what you are going to use for most of your college career. These are the 3. Now, as you can see, they're hanging. Some students just have them indented, with the first sentence indented and then the second line hanging out here. That's wrong, right? It's supposed to have the author and first initial. You do not have the first initial in the in-text citation. A lot of students do that. They would have Bumstead, according to Bumstead D, 2009, blah, blah, blah. You never have the initial. You never use the full first name, because in APA, you do not want to give away the gender of the author, because that's called gender bias. Some people don't want to read authors by women, or they discount authors with men with a certain first name because they can somehow tell, by their first name, their ethnicity or something. So you never do that in APA. You only use last name, first initial, so that there is no gender in APA. So the other part that you'll notice with all 3 of these is that only the first word is capitalized. And I always make this comment to students, and they still do this. Only the first word is capitalized unless it comes after a punctuation mark or it's a proper noun, like someone's name, right? That would be capitalized. Or IBM, the name of a business, that would be capitalized. But other than that, what you'll see in all three of these examples is only the first word is capitalized. Now, what you'll notice in a journal article coming from the database, only the name of the journal is in italics, right? Now, there's only two things that you should have at the end of a journal. That is the DOI, the document locator, or the website homepage of the journal itself. You should never have that link that comes from within the library database that says easy proxy, SPC, blah, blah, blah. You don't want that. You either, if you cannot find the DOI, if it's not there, then what you do is go on the internet and look up the homepage of the journal and put the homepage of the journal here. For a website, nothing is in italics, okay? And you have retrieved from without a date. You don't need a date in here. Now, with the textbook, you'll notice that the title of the textbook is in italics. And these are the little things that people should compare their APA formatting to, but they don't. So I wanted to point all this stuff out because it's all done correctly in the template, and all you have to do is follow the template. You could overtype the name of your person here, overtype the year, and then just start and see that it's all caps, and I mean it's first word capitalized only, and just continue on. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. You have three great examples, right? And then you've got other examples down here of a journal, right? And so, you know, here's another one, another journal, and here's another journal. So you have multiple examples of a journal with the DOI, with the homepage of the journal. So you have other examples here. So that gets us through the APA, right? And so with this, you don't have to worry about formatting. It's all done for you. And then we worry about the content of your paper. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and then go to the model paper for week 2. Let me see, I have the model paper for week 2 open. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm sharing the model paper from week 2. And as I've mentioned, it's not perfect. It was done by a student, but it was the best one that was done by the student at that time. So as you can see, this is the same as the APA template that I just showed you, in that this is upper and lowercase, all caps. And they're all in the same font as the rest of the paper. And these are the things that you really want to keep in mind as you're beginning this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here. So they've got identifying the problem. Now, what they've got here is they've got the wrong in-text citation, which is what a lot of students do, right? And they've got a direct quote here, right? This was only supposed to be, let's just say, Governor Scott, 2017, because that's what they have in the references. But they should not have the entire title of the paper, and quotation marks do not go inside the in-text citation. Oh, sorry. There we go. Somebody had an alarm going off there. So then the person has a level 1 section header, and a level 2 section header. So at least they're familiar with how the section headers go. Now they've got a level 3 section header. So it's not that you cannot use level 1, level 2, and level 3. But if you're not familiar with how to use them correctly, then you get yourself in trouble. So you may want to stay with just level 1. But this person has a subsection of level 2, which shows that they know more what they're doing with APA. And so they go into the people, they go into the details about the legal system, they go into treatment options. And so this is the level of detail that you should have had in your week 2 paper. And a lot of students just had a bunch of paragraphs strung together without any section headers trying to define the sections that they're doing. And that's what made this one so strong. Now, here is a mistake that the student made. The period at the end, if you're paraphrasing, goes after the close paren. A lot of students do the close paren, so this is the paraphrasing up here, and they put a period, but the period actually goes here. So as I said, you know, this isn't perfect, but it's very, very good. And so the student comes down and they explain everything that they need to explain. You know, they talk about the availability, and then they go into what was requested, which was the force field analysis, right? And they're discussing the restraining forces before they show the graphic. They don't just say, here's my force field analysis, here's 3 things. Some students only submitted 1 item for a restraining force and 1 item for the other one. And so they only had 1. And most topics were more complex than just 1 restraining force and 1 driving force. So students just were doing like the bare minimum. Some students had 2 restraining forces and 2 driving forces, when in reality, there's at least 4 or 5, at least, at a minimum. And most items, especially public, you know, things that are of public concern, are very complex. You know, there could be federal laws, there could be people from other states that are influencing this problem. There could be gangs from South America influencing this problem in Florida. So people are not really going deeply into what the restraining forces and driving forces are. And so, but this student did his best. And so, as you can see, he has 5 restraining forces and 5 driving forces. And some students had like 1 or 2, and I was just like, you just didn't even like go too deep into it. And that's what you want to do, is you want to go as deep as you can to show that you have thoroughly covered the issues. Then the student did the cause and effect diagram, right? And the cause and effect diagram is supposed to have funding. It's supposed to have treatment options. And you can have multiple items within the particular funding issue. You might have 4 or 5 items under funding that may be causing your problem, right? Legal system. You could have 4 or 5 things under here, and maybe only have 1 thing under people. And so what they said is the growing population both affects the people and the treatment options. So most people, they have just 1 item here, and 1 item here, and 1 item here. So most people did not go deep enough on their week 2 paper. So now I've gone over these items. I'm going to stop recording. Unless anyone has any questions either on APA or on what would make a model paper. Does anybody have any questions on these? Okay, so we do not have any questions. I'm going to stop the recording, And then I can take offline questions. One moment.